All right, welcome back, everybody. We are here on Easter Sunday. We came back for a special episode of church, and it's going to be us four here. But I guess to let you know who all's in the room, we usually start to my left. We're just going to start straight across from me today and let everybody introduce themselves.
But see, I like it when Buster goes first. It sets the tone.
Nope, we got to change it up. We cannot be stuck on traditions made by men.
Well, I said Buster. All right. I'm Kurt.
All right, so there's Kurt. I think you guys know him by now. You can pick who you want to go next.
Buster.
He just introduced me. I'm Buster.
Oh, but
I
we don't
get to pick who goes next.
But we don't really get to know you as Buster, though. I think everybody on here knows you as Pretty Poppy.
Oh, Pretty Poppy. Excuse me.
Yeah. You can pick who goes next.
Or even better, we do this. I'll give my real name next time we do this, and we'll really confuse them all.
So who's going next?
Let's see. How about Daniel?
All right, Daniel.
That'd be me, Daniel.
He's back for round two. We, I guess you could say, we conned him into it, coming to visit us with us again, and looking forward to it. So we're going to get started, and I will say that before we go too far, I was kind of thinking, you guys think we need to change the name of this podcast?
Yep.
Because it's kind of a mouthful. That you may have certainty. I had several people say, "How do you find this thing?" And I'm like, something about certainty is hard for me to remember. So we're probably going to change it in the future. I don't think it'll matter. Like everybody who had it already will still be able to have the feed, but maybe we can make it a little bit more user friendly as far as finding it.
So what's the name of this?
The name. Yeah, how about that? We're I guess this is Luke 16, so we're 16 weeks into this, and you just figured out the name of it was That You May Have Certainty.
Yeah, I'm pretty quick.
What did you think the name of it was?
I didn't know.
You had no idea?
No, you just send me a link and I click on listen to it.
Okay. Everybody who's already here listening to it, if you've never cared to look into the title of this, we, for the time being, or That You May Have Certainty, that kind of came from Luke writing Luke and Acts to Theophilus, saying that we want you to have this account of Jesus and the early church so that you can have more certainty about what we're saying, what we believe, that it's true. But in hindsight, making that a podcast name, probably not the best decision. So we're going to move forward from that. But before we get going, I have a question for everybody. So if someone could look at how you spend your time, your money, your attention, what would they say that you cared about the most?
No, that's a good question.
Yeah, and that's the sound of crickets here because everybody's like, I don't want to answer that.
Yeah. That is a tough one.
It's hard to say on my time because every time I plan something comes up.
Oh, yeah? How so?
Yeah, may take kids riding Ranger and they may wind up in the hospital or something like that. You never know.
That does tend to happen.
Yeah.
We had an eventful Saturday evening yesterday, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah. One of our oldest ones made a poor life choice, which is why you should always keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle when it's moving.
That's what they say.
Yeah, I think trying to think about this question, though, like when you consider your time, money, and attention, it's hard to like pinpoint because I may spend a lot of time at work, but I may spend a lot of money on kids' hospital bills, or I may but my attention may be completely somewhere else. So I don't know. I would be interested to see if somebody could do like an audit on me and see, okay, where is this guy's head, heart, and money at? I think that'd be interesting.
I think most of us don't struggle with all three. I think most of us really find one and really struggle in that one area.
What do you mean?
So you said time, money, and focus.
Yeah.
So for me, like money's not that big of a deal because I don't have very much anyway. So like
we signed up to be school teachers.
Yeah. So like money, whatever. That's not a struggle at all. Time can become one that's tough for me, and then attention. Attention will probably be my toughest one because I'm busy doing stuff like for the kingdom all the time, and I do the things with my money that I'm pretty much supposed to do, but attention is rough because it's hard for me to stay in the moment and be where my feet are all the time. So a divided focus is what gets me more than any of the other two. And so I think with most people, they don't really struggle with all three, and some people may. But I think if somebody's genuinely trying, they really only struggle in one spot for the most part.
And I would say if somebody is struggling with all three, it's probably if someone looked at it to see how they're spending their time or their focus and their attention and their money, it's going to be like just on yourself. Like if you're struggling with all three, it's probably, well, it's because I'm worried about me.
Yeah.
Daniel, you agree with everything over there? You got anything, anything to add? Okay. Well, let's jump right into it. We're in Luke chapter 16, and I'll go ahead and tell you guys and everybody who's listening to this, if you are, I forgot. We need to apologize to anybody who might be from the state of Vermont. Apparently, I was rude to you guys last week, and
You was. It hurt my feelings, and I'm not even from Vermont.
But
your dad was rude to a country.
Yeah,
No,
you were rude to an entire country.
No, I'm misunderstood.
Oh, you are misunderstood, or you misunderstood the country?
Most people misunderstand me.
No. Anyway, it was all in good fun. We love Vermont. I've never even been, but I've heard it's beautiful and have no ill will towards them with that, though. So we're in Luke 16, and Luke 16 is a very hard one. As I read it, I think that was my biggest takeaway, that I could very easily be wrong about some of the things that we're saying here. And so I want to encourage everyone who is listening to take it with a open hand, the things that we're about to say, because at least if I'm saying it, I'm telling you that I'm pretty open to being wrong here. Some of the other fellows, they may have some more firm beliefs that they're going to come out with. And I'm not saying we're not sure about anything we believe, but as a whole, I'm open to being wrong. And that's most of the time for me anyway. But I am going to give you some opinions, and I think biblically based opinions. So with all of that out of the way, Pretty Poppy, you go ahead and summarize the first 13 verses or so about the parable of the dishonest manager.
Okay. Jesus telling a parable, and he's talking about the unrighteous steward. The man was in charge of a rich man's estate who basically got fired for bad stewardship. And the man was kind of unsure how he was going to live life. He said, I'm either too weak to work or too lazy to work, and I'm too proud to beg. And so he come up with a game plan.
That's a rough state to be in, isn't it? When he says, I'm not fit to dig, that's what my translation says, and I'm too proud to beg. I'm like, well, you got it rough, buddy.
But he was very narrow in his opinion of the things that he could do. He was like, well, shovel doesn't fit my hand good, and I don't feel like begging, so there's nothing else to do.
Yeah, he didn't explore a lot of
He's
options.
not exactly pounding the pavement here.
Well, he covered most, though, because if you can't dig, so he's basically eliminating all manual labor. It's out of here. Not doing it. I have no intention on sweating. And then he says, but I'm just a little bit too proud to sit on the side of the street and beg. So really leaves him into the what we would call white collar type of work.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry to interrupt your summary. Keep going.
So he come up with a game plan. He said, what I'm going to do before boss man boots me out, or he may have been doing this all along, I never was really sure, but he had people who owed his boss certain amounts of money, and he was giving them discounts. And by giving them discounts, he was making these people obligated to him. So he had a game plan. I'm going to be able to take care of myself, even though I don't have a plan, because I got these people obligated to me. And I want to say I read it. His boss kind of said, I kind of commend you about that, using your head like it. But he goes on, Jesus goes on, he talks about it, said that the people of this age are coming up with a plan where they can take care of themselves. And he makes a kind of like a parallel to what is the Christian doing to lay up those treasures in heaven? What are we doing? Do we have a game plan? And it was kind of using the unrighteous steward to help people see, hey, he had a game plan, even though it probably wasn't an up and up right thing to do, but he was trying to take care of the future. And then, when I read this, it had me asking myself a question: what is my game plan in laying up treasures in heaven, and what is how are we going to accomplish this and all this? But
okay. Well, so what I wanted to get first, like when you guys read this story and hearing Pretty Poppy over there summarizing that for us, what is your first reaction? Like, what is your initial response to that? Anything strange?
Well, it took me a minute, not just reading it, but listening to preaching on it, what a great example this guy is to us in different ways.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it. So, Kurt, on your initial reading of this, what was your thought on?
Well, at first you're like, why is this guy who he employs this man? The man does a bad job. And then he, after doing a bad job, finds out he's going to get fired, basically steals money from this guy. And the guy comes back and he's like, you know what? That's pretty cool how you did that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know that I might not have that mentality if that was my employee.
Yeah, this is one where I read it and I'm just like, I have to really, it's like there's a lot of things, you can read the Bible and like once you've read it a bunch, you can kind of go through it and just read and you're like, check, 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 got it, got it. You read this one and you're like, wait a minute. What did I just read? What?
Well, there's not many parables where somebody's dishonest and the guy in charge says, hey, good job there, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You took advantage of me and done good for yourself. Proud of you.
Yeah. And so that's where, this guy, apparently, the way I was reading it, it's like brought to the owner of the property, the business, whatever it is, like, hey, this guy is severely wasting all of the stuff that he's in charge of. And so the owner, manager, whatever, goes to this next manager and says, hey, turn in an account of all you've done. And the guy's like, oh, it's over. Like once he sees the books, I am donezo. There's some strikingly similarities there between our current political state of our government that we won't get into right now when we start turning over books and people get to see the inside of it. But this guy freaks out. And then like all the things you guys said, Jesus praising this guy has me sitting here thinking, what on earth? Why does Jesus praise this guy's strategy? And I think y'all are on some good answers. I'm going to let you guys cook on this for a minute. So who wants to give us like some thoughts on why do you think Jesus was praising this guy's plan and strategy?
Just from the very beginning, this is obviously not a literal thing, right? It's a parable where it has a different meaning, right?
Oh, so it's not like I need to go when I'm in business, practice dishonesty to make myself more favorable. So
I mean, Jesus is telling us here that you need to have a plan, and the things that you're doing right now, they matter. And it's really cool that in verse 2, he says, you're going to have to give an account.
Like we all are.
And exactly, that's where I'm going with this is everybody will. One day you will sit down and you will be before God, and he's going to say, all right, Kurt, here's all the things that I gave you. What did you do with it? And that's sobering to think about is I'm going to have to answer for that one day. And that's obviously the point of this parable, but he's already hitting you with it in verse 2.
Yeah.
And it's right out of the jump is you will answer for the things that you've been entrusted with. And everything that God gives you is for you to use for his kingdom and for his glory. And if we're not doing that, then we're just like this guy that's about to get fired.
I think that's one of the things that stuck out with me the most is like the emphasis on we, as much as we'd like to believe we are, we're not the owner. We are the steward. We have been entrusted with things to take care of them and use them in the best way that we can. But I think too many times or it may just be me, like I get too much caught in the mindset and the mentality of, oh no, I'm the owner and these are my things. And I don't think that's the way it's intended. I think it's more like what you're saying, Kurt.
Yeah.
Like we're supposed to be, God's given this to us and we're supposed to use it in a way that's going to bring him glory, honor, praise, and build his kingdom up.
Well, and not even just the things that we're given, just us in and of ourselves. Like I don't have that autonomy. I don't get to just do whatever I want to. In 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 18, it says, knowing that you are ransomed from the futile ways inherited from your forefathers, not with perishable things such as silver or gold, but with the precious blood of Christ, like that of a lamb without blemish or spot. He was foreknown before the foundation of the world, but was made manifest in the last times for the sake of you. So we're not our own. We're bought with the price, right? Like it says in Romans, I think this Romans, bought with the price. We're not our own.
I have to go with you on that one.
But the idea here is that like even in and of ourselves, we've been bought and paid for. Like we don't have the freedom and the autonomy to just do whatever we want to. We've been given a mission and we're going to be called into account one day for not only the things that we're given, but for this new life that we've been given.
Yeah.
Because we're not our own. How
far do you take that? Like as far as like what, like you took it pretty far right there. Like we don't even own ourselves once you're saved. Like you're a new creature. You've been bought by the blood of Jesus. What about your kids? Do we need to count our kids as like mine, or do we need to realize that we're just stewarding them for a little while?
I think the more painful option there is correct.
Yeah, you want to talk about sobering, like the idea. And I came to terms with this. I think last time Daniel was here, we talked about the guy the first time that I was going to he wanted me to go to Africa, and I was like, I don't really feel called. And we went through all that. And one of the things I told him, I was like, well, I just really feel like when I go there this time that I'm going to die and not come home. And there's not going to be anybody there to take care of my kids. And that's one of the things that he helped me work through, and also like trusting God with, is if God decides that I am going to leave this earth to go into eternity because my work is done, then with that comes the understanding that he can take better care of my kids than I could have if I stayed. If I had stayed, I would have done worse than what he has planned for them, and he can do a better job. And even if it's not that drastic, even if it's if you think about it, the fact that our kids, when they hopefully turn 18, they're leaving out on their own, and our time of stewarding them as ours it may not end completely, but it's changing a lot. Like we're going to give them more and more out. I say that because I bring up our kids because I see a lot of people, especially the ages that my kids are. I'm looking at a lot of parents, and I see a lot of parents who are, especially Christian parents, who like really want the best for their kids. They really want their kids to succeed and love Jesus, but they are helicoptering over them. They are like they're almost like smothering them so much. They make poor decisions for the whole family and themselves, and they justify it by saying, well, I'm doing it for the kids. And I'm like, I don't think that's a good idea. I think we need to recognize that we're stewarding our kids, and not make them idols and not act like we own them. All right. So what are you thinking about over there when it comes to why Jesus praised this guy, Poppy?
Because he had a game plan. Living a Christian life, we got to learn how to prioritize things in our life. How much priority are we setting towards laying up our treasures in heaven? Do we prioritize helping people in need and all this? And sometimes if we're not careful, we'll just go through life and we'll just exist, and really
coasting,
and really do nothing and say, well, I done all I thought I was supposed to do. But this man had a retirement plan. He wasn't at retirement age. So how are we? What are we doing? And as I reading this, it just kept asking me, what am I doing? How am I prioritizing things that I do? Am I giving what I need to give to the needy? Am I giving the time that I need to give to Bible study, prayer, and concentrating and trying to learn more about God? Am I prioritizing those things, or am I on the internet playing Super Mario or whatever games we play, things that will just keep our minds in neutral all the time? Which a lot of times my wife asks me, what are you thinking about? Nothing. How can you think about nothing? Easiest thing in the world to do.
Isn't that awesome?
It is. Man, I can shift my mind in neutral and just sit there for hours.
Well, I was just wondering, like, where did you find Super Mario on the internet?
I don't know what you find on the internet.
Sometimes he just says stuff.
Well, that's fine, but I was like, I would love to find Super Mario on the internet.
Oh, we have the Nintendo 64 out, and Fant thinks it's the best thing in the world.
One of the originals still works?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Got Mario Kart. That's all he does.
Oh, I bet he loves that.
He does.
Mario Kart. Daniel over there, you seem to be like nodding along with Dad, but what you got on why you think Jesus praised this guy?
Well, I said a while ago we can find a good example in him. I guess at the end of verse 2, he don't even try to prove his innocence. He goes right into guilty mode and preparing for what's next. And I think when Christ gets a hold of us as a Christian, brings us to him, we have a sobering awareness that we're not innocent in nothing. And from that moment on, we're going in preparation mode for him and his kingdom, for doing his work. We're being prepared to give an account for our time here.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of can go hand in hand.
Yeah, and that's kind of like we talked about last week. The idea of you can't be saved until you realize you're lost. And like, it's when you get to that point where you're like, this guy, there's no telling how many times he tried to cover up the books, and he'd like been making sure he didn't get found out for who knows how long. This is a parable, of course, not a real story, but we know stuff like this happens. And he had finally gotten to a point to where the boss man says, okay, we're about to do an audit. And he's like, okay, the gig is up. I just have to admit it and make the best of a bad situation. Now, so this is the skeptic in me. And I have to bring this up about this guy. Do you think there was a chance that this guy had been like, being overpriced on what these people owed his manager, and he had like put the price of, oh, you did this, we're going to charge you interest, and we're going to have the what you owe us in return is so high that these people can't pay it back, and so like his boss is basically losing money. And then when they come to him, he's like, what was it that we said you owed? Oh yeah, I lied on that. Here, actually make it this. And so he like starts maybe actually for the first time being honest and charging them correctly, and he gets it to a manageable thing that they can actually pay, and they can like, oh, I can pay it back, and now the boss is making money, and so maybe he was dishonest the whole time, and this is the first time he's being honest. I don't know.
Yeah, because I was looking, you're talking about that. I'm looking at verse 6, and he said that he owed 100 measures of oil, according to the little footnotes or whatever it is. That was about 875 gallons of oil,
and that's quite a bit of oil.
And if we're talking olive oil, that's
a bunch of olives.
I'm just saying, the oil we're rolling in barrels for this gasoline is pretty high too. So just think about that's a lot of gallons that we have here. Okay, so moving on with this though, Jesus says that you cannot serve God and money. Anybody? I think Kurt's probably like self-admittedly the least that's struggled with that, and I'm sure he has a little bit, just probably not as much as most. But does anybody find that tension in your own life that, hey, this is actually very real? Because let's be honest, we like stuff.
I think we find comfort if you have a little money put up,
and
then when you don't, they send you into panic mode sometimes, and we should be having that same comfort, knowing that God's in control and He's got it regardless.
Well, and that thought just kind of goes against what we're taught as the American dream, right? That you should be able to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and work hard and make all this money, and that makes you a good person. And one thing that we see back in verse 8 is he's talking about the people of this world. They work so much harder than the Christians do. And why is that? If we know that what we're doing here is so much more important than what they're doing, why are they working so much harder than we are to get what they want?
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I read that really kind of hit home with me is how much different would the world look if we worked as hard to bring people to the kingdom as rich people do to get rich?
Oh,
and so if you're,
easy now,
if you're contrasting those two things, just like Jesus did, rich people are ruthless to get more. Like they will do anything to get more, and it doesn't even matter.
Yeah,
and we tiptoe around it.
Yeah, and we tiptoe around it when it does matter, and we're not willing to do the things that it takes to get people to the kingdom when it matters forever. And this money that people are just dying over, it's going to be gone as soon as you die.
Yeah, and how many Christians do we have that are trying to like basically play the limbo of, well, I don't really want to make money my God and serve it, but at the same time, I'm not going to make God my God. I'm not serving Him either.
Right.
And we're like that lukewarm person that's stuck in the middle and effectively trying not to do too much of either one. We end up serving neither. And we're just like Dad said earlier, just existing, going through life, coasting, and not really making a difference at all.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you've done nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'm kind of like Kurt. When we signed up to be school teachers, we kind of knew that we were never just going to be raking in, wads and wads of cash. But even though when you don't have a lot, you still, the lot that you don't have, it's pretty necessary. And so I'm trying to make sure that I have a tendency to really want to hold on to money. Like, and sometimes I'll have to tell myself like, hey, you can't just not help somebody because you're afraid you're not going to have enough later on. You got to help people when it arrives. But that is really, really hard. And I have not always been that way. I have to give my wife, Brittany, a shout out. When we got married, I was very, 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 add a couple more berries, closed fist about money to people. I was like, not going to trust them. Somebody's going to take advantage of me. Not going to happen to this guy. And being married to her has helped loosen that grip now. And now I think we're a pretty good team when it comes to helping people. We work well together.
Well, like Daniel said earlier, like, where's your trust? Like, is my trust in Kurt to take care of Kurt, or do I trust in God to take care of Kurt? If I trust in God, I'm not going to worry about it.
Well, and to make it, more challenging for the American people, our trust has been in the U.S. dollar for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. dollar has not really failed since, I don't know, World War II. It's been on the up and up. So like almost everybody who's alive right now has been seeing the dollar just do better and better. We could very well be coming into a point where the U.S. dollar lets us down, and maybe people will, I'd hate to see it have to happen that way for people to like not trust in the dollar as much, but to actually trust in God again. But that's a real possibility, because in America, we have been so focused on if your bank account, like Daniel said, has savings set aside and we have money there, it makes us feel more safe. And if we feel more safe, then like Kurt said, we're not really trusting in God so much, trusting in me and, the country, the United States, doing better and always having some. Because what happens if you have $1 million in the bank account and all of a sudden the dollar is worthless? You have a whole bunch of useless paper.
Whole bunch of nothing.
Yeah. I mean, a good example would be like the Civil War. You had all these people they transferred all their money into Confederate money. When that war was over, it was useless. They had nothing.
I have some of that, and it's not even. You could buy Play-Doh. Play-Doh's worth more than that Confederate money.
Yep. Okay.
What
Now,
did y'all think about verse 9?
All right, read it for
It
us.
says, "And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of unrighteous wealth, so that when it fails, they may receive you into the eternal dwellings."
Man, good luck, because I looked that one up and I read a whole bunch of stuff and I was still like, I'm not really sure.
That one confused me.
Yeah, that's one.
It actually reminded me of something Dad would say all the time when somebody would ask him, "Well, how's business going?" Well, he'd always say, "Well, I'm making more friends than money." And, the older I get, the more I realize how true that was, because he wasn't one, when he had his business, he wasn't one to hound somebody that owed him money. He would just say, they'll pay it when they want to, or either they won't. And
Yeah.
so there were weeks where, he made a lot of friends, just like this guy did, but he didn't make a whole lot of money.
Yeah. I don't know. I wonder, like, if maybe my initial reading of it, where I'm looking at it as like unrighteous wealth, and my thought is like evil. They've been selling bad things, like pick your whether they were stealing it from people, but maybe it's just talking about not eternal wealth. Like it's just talking about this stuff here that's not going to last because it's not righteous. It's just secular money. And so making friends with them. Now, as far as so that when it fails, they may receive you into the eternal dwellings. I don't know. I'm going to have to say I'm confused on that one.
So to me, it makes sense to say that use this stuff that doesn't matter to convert people to things that do matter.
Mm.
So if you got a bunch of money in this life, give it to other people. That way, when it comes time for you to tell them things, they may listen to you. So you may be able to get influence using things that don't matter to get people to a place that does matter.
Mm. So like taking this away from money, like things that don't matter, using like football in order to use it as an open door to witness to people.
Right.
And be like, hey, we're going to go watch this football game. You want to go with us? And, when you're there, you're making that inroad of, hey, we're using something that doesn't matter in order to try to share with you things that do matter.
Kind of like Paul says, being all things to all people. Meet people where they're at, develop relationships, and then, get them to salvation from there.
Yeah. Like travel ball, like with Daniel and my kids doing travel ball, like using it to, it doesn't matter at the end of the day, a bunch of kids having fun, a bunch of parents hanging out for a long time together. Use it. I mean,
yeah, you're in a huddle every game, so that's when your chance is. Everybody's right there, get their attentions.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes back to a speaker I heard Monday night when he made a statement. I wrote it down. He said, "When believers become believable,"
Mm-hmm.
and that just struck home with me. When a believer becomes believable in his daily lifestyle, when he's doing all these things, that's when we're going to touch the world. That's when people's going to start changing. When believers become believable. That just blew me away, that statement.
And it's like Kurt said, the money part, we all, root of all evil. But if you're using it for the kingdom gospel
Mm-hmm.
and it's bringing sinners to salvation, I mean, it's a whole different story.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, money in itself is agnostic. Like, it's not good or bad. It all depends on who has it and what they're about to do with it. Now, when we get into loving money, that's, we've gone too far. But I agree with Daniel. And I actually, we were at a fundraiser a couple of weeks ago, and we were about to pray. And like, I prayed for local businesses. I was like, hey, God, I ask that you would bless these local businesses to make more money so that they can give more to us so we can do more of your kingdom work. And I think in my own head, that's a reasonable thing to ask, that God would bless people who are going to use his money wisely so that we can go reach more people. Because why else would we need more money if we're not going to use it to advance the kingdom and buy groceries? Because those things are getting high. All right. Anybody got anything else you want to throw in on this parable of the dishonest manager?
One more thing.
Yeah.
In verse 13,
Hmm.
where he's talking about serving two masters. I
Yeah.
was reading in one of these sites I like to go to that breaks things down, and they had a quote from a survey in 1992. And in this survey, people were asked how much money they would need to have to make the American dream, right? So
in 1992.
in 1992. So people that earned $25,000 a year or less said they would need $54,000 a year to make it.
Hmm.
So if you made $25,000 or less, they said, all right, magic number's 54. If I can ever get there, it's great.
It's a little more than double.
Right. Those in the $100,000 annual income bracket said they could buy the dream for an average of $192,000 a year.
Almost double.
So these figures indicate basically you always think you need about double of what you actually have.
Guilty.
And so that's the American dream, right? Is to,
hey, that was I was teaching U.S. history from 1877 to the present, and there was a video clip I had of a historian, and he said it, and I thought it was always just really good. He said the American dream comes down to more, always more, and then more.
Yeah.
And that's what we always want. Like, we want more money. We think that's going to be the answer to all of our problems. And I'll even say, like, I look back, you don't have to go to 1992. When I first started teaching, I'm not lying to you. My first teaching salary was $17,000. And I was like, oh man, if I could just get to 30, man, I would be just awesome.
but if you ask those kids, you were overpaid at 17.
Oh, 100%. 100%. No, I don't know if I can say I was overpaid at 17. 17 was rough, but I'm looking back on it now. I'm like, how on earth did I survive? But I think it just goes back to the American dream, trying to always get more. You good over there?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, Daniel, you good?
Yep.
Okay. I think that's a great place to call a little pause for episode 1. Hopefully you guys will come back and join us on Thursday when episode 2 comes out, the second half of this. And until then, I'm going to ask Poppy if you'll go ahead and pray us out of here.
Father God, we thank you for this day. And Lord, we thank you for your mercy and your grace and your love and your patience. And Lord, we thank you because we have your inspired book where we can sit down and we can read it and we can study it and we can know more things about you. We can grow closer to you. And Lord, I pray you be with us as we carry on these conversations, Lord, that will always bring positive information to people, Lord, so people can learn and grow from it. And Lord, I pray that if by people listening to this, that it will give them a desire to learn more about you, Lord, and they can discover more about you on their own, Lord, or with you. Lord, I just thank you for being so good to us. In Jesus' name, amen.